This is a podcast about gossip, dirty laundry, chitter-chatter, and backfence prittle-prattle. In each episode, Joe Wilkinson, David Earl, and Poppy the postwoman, invite you lot, the lovely listeners, to send in any juicy gossip you might have heard over the years. At the end of each episode they will choose their favorite bit of gossip and help spread it around the world. So, without further ado, welcome to Garage Mopeds. No. Grappling mummies. No. Grubby moustaches. No. Gossipmongers. Yes. Gossipmongers. Yes. Yes. That's it. Gossipmongers. Welcome. Gossip number 1.
Right, this is from Joe Addison. Team. I thought for some time whether or not this should be shared. I've decided it definitely should. Let me take you back to 1990 Mansfield. A boy at our school by the name of Simon Brown used to always ride his bike around without the seat. So yes, just sat on his seat pole.
Here we go. This is more like it.
Penetration can't be 100% confirmed, but people say his dad constantly fitted new saddles.
What did he take them off?
Only for him to go out to play and return without said new saddle and a wry grin.
Okay, yeah, lovely.
This was no flash in the pan incident. It started when Dan was 5 and carried on until he joined the Royal Navy at the age of 16. Right. People now in the local pub still joke about the whereabouts of the saddleless sailor. I'm sure most towns have someone like this.
No, they don't.
Last time I saw him on leave from the Navy, he was looking very lean and tanned, now driving a car instead of a bike. But rumour has it he's removed the top of the gear stick, unconfirmed.
Young boy riding his racing bike with the seat post rammed up his butthole. Mind those sleeping policemen now. Ow. Ow. Ooh. Ow. Ouch. Yikes. Ouch. Oh. Gossip number 2.
Right, this is from Sam. When I was about 12, my mate Adam was a pathological liar. He had a magazine cover of someone doing a motorcycle jump over the Grand Canyon or something similar, and ludicrously suggested this was in fact him. And this is what he'd been up to the previous summer. He also had a poster up in his bedroom wall of a woman with enormous breasts barely contained in a swimsuit. One day, whilst openly ogling her and calling her fit, he also claimed that she was in fact his aunt, who worked at the Playboy Mansion. She had invited us all to visit and had some Playboy mates who were already really excited about us staying over.
They only got 12.
Yeah. Sadly, it didn't work out in the end. Something about air travel chaos and the price of tickets.
Unbelievable.
Though I'm sure they never existed. What do you think? I often think of those disappointed, busty paedophiles still waiting. They must be in their 70s now. Busty paedophiles.
Busty pedophiles. Busty pedophiles. Busty pedophiles. Pedophiles with big jugs. Or to put it another way, nonces with knockers. Or to put it another way, nonces with knockers. Nonces with knockers. Gossip number 3.
This is from Matty Theo. Fuck. Heard your podcast and made me remember Mum telling me this one about a popping codger she heard of called 1980s BP Clive.
What's a popping clogger?
Yeah,
No
what is
idea. Someone dying?
Oh,
Popping clogger.
codger. What is it?
Anyway. Has to be said as a preface that before he was known as 1980s BP Clive, he was a right famous bummer about town, wore an earring in the gay ear, frequented secret oily parties in a leather jacket purposefully turned inside out, and was known to have an anal opening with a diameter such that whole turds would often drop out mid-stride.
God.
No.
Please.
We're better. Surely,
Please.
surely we're better than this.
Don't know.
Are we?
Please,
Are
Matty.
we?
Anyway, so we're driving one day and she passes the services and she tells me that that's where 1980s BP Clive exploded. And I was, of course, like, what are you talking about, Mum? And she recounted how she'd been told by her friend, Ms. Sue.
Mizzou.
Muzz.
Not married.
Oh, no.
This is weird. And she recounted how she'd been told by her friend, Ms. Sue Mycox, that in the late 80s, a man had exploded at the surfaces. And not because of the petrol or nothing, but because before, when services weren't 24/7, this old leathery man would go after hours, stick a deflated rugby ball up his clacker,
Clacker.
Up his clacker.
then inflate it with the air pumps used to pressurise tyres.
I'm going to stick my neck out and say that's a bad idea. In the cover of night.
I've since Googled it, and it turns out it was pretty rife in the 80s, before you could just go and buy a fuck-off big dildo. So 1980s BP Clive is going about the services with just an air nozzle sticking out of his considerable arsehole, like some kind of tiny orange tail. And he's inflating this rugby ball at the lowest PPI setting, or what have you.
He's not a madman.
And as it inflates all up in his guts, he's wanking. And he gets it out, and just as he's about to come, it said he'd pinch the nozzle and completely deflate himself. Build up the momentum and get his Jekylls right up.
These words.
3 or 4 times of this violent masturbatory brutalism, and when he gunks up, the spray is arcing a good 20 metres over the forecourt. Now, this is already fucked. So if this is too much, then I understand. But keep reading if you want to know.
Just stop it him.
If you want to know how it turned out for 1980s BP Clive,
His name.
I can imagine.
Sounds like a computer.
I think you can see where this is heading.
No, I can't.
So yeah, Mum tells me Ms. Sue Mycox told her that 1980s BP Clive
So much
got
detail.
right jeckled up on some poppers and fucking ignored to change the PPI pressure so that it was on the highest setting.
Oh, shit.
Like for a tractor or some shit. And he's hand to gland combat with his old fella, and the rugger ball is hitting max inflation way too quick. And just as he realises what he's done, or rather not done, the ball's leather skin breaks open and the immense rubber bladder inside the ball inflates so violently that 1980s BP Clive just fucking pops like a bloody wet balloon and showers blood and guts all over the entire BP. Ms. Sue Mycox
She's a
told Mum
gossipy old new, isn't she?
told Mum that her aunt lived in the same suburb and had awoken at the sound of a piercing scream, followed by a pop,
Scream and then a pop.
then a series of dull, wet, meaty thuds.
What as his thorax hit the ground?
They knew it was Clive.
Why? From the thud. That sounds like Clive hitting the floor.
Only because of a partially intact piece of jaw and dental records. And I guess because, like I said, he was a right famous bummer.
Right.
Cool beans. Hope this ain't too fucked for you guys.
Fuck.
Who the hell is this bloke?
God.
1980s BB Clive. Sounds quite a character. Imagine filling up your car with petrol, you turn round and see Clive pumping his bottom up as big as it can go, tugging on his chap. I think I'll head down to the Texaco instead. Gossip number 4.
I don't know if anything makes me feel sick.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
Let's
you
wait.
must grossed out by something.
What's that banjo string?
Okay.
On a dick.
Yeah.
the back of a dick. The back of a dick. Right, fair enough.
It makes me feel faint. Don't know.
Really? Yeah, I know what you mean.
feel
It's
sick
yeah.
Horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Feels like it
Too
could
thick.
twang and bleed at any point.
I'm gonna faint.
Yeah, it looks too tender to be where it is. That should be like a lot
Yeah.
solid. Yeah,
I can
Should
feel
be
Fair enough.
should
I
be
can
a
feel
bone or
myself getting-
something, not a bit of.
dizzy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like the fact that after a second that
Banjo
popped in.
string.
I don't know if anything grosses me out. I think the back of a penis mainly.
Yeah.
Don't look at it, I
God.
say. Don't look at it.
I'm scared I'm gonna faint now. God.
Yeah.
I'll try and think of something else. Okay. This is from Anon.
God, I hope this is about banjo strings.
And you faint.
Instantly
Just
pass
hear
out.
just hear her. As your head hits the table. Oh. You found her Achilles heel.
God. This is from Anon. Hi, I live in a town of where there's a large private school of the same name. I got chatting to a guy in boots and he told me about one of his teachers at school and the secret club he'd been running for some of the sixth form students. Apparently there's an old Latin teacher called who runs an evening fart club. Oh, this is making me feel sick again. Just too hot for any of these bits
Yeah.
of gossip. Every year he selects half a dozen boys to come to his house on on a Sunday evening, once a month, eat a roast dinner. They are
Get a load
allowed.
of spuds in.
They are allowed a couple of beers with their meal. At the end,
We're allowed 2 beers.
How many of you had, Tom?
at the end of the dinner, they pass a bucket round the table, and each person pulls down their pants and farts into it.
Fucking hell, this is really weird.
I love it's called an evening fart club.
Fucking
Evening
hell.
farts club.
Oh, I don't know how to feel about this.
I feel fine about it.
Right, boys. Every one of you. Come to mine at 7:30 p.m. I've got a superb little game we can all play around my dining table. It involves bottoms and buckets. No thank you, sir. I'm afraid you haven't got a say in the matter, Watkins. 7:30. Prompt. It involves bottoms and buckets. Bottoms and buckets. Bottoms and buckets. Gossip number 5.
This is from John. Hi, Poppy, Joe and David. This piece of gossip is from my days at university. Myself and my friends have moved into a small street and have been slightly annoyed by the neighbours as they never took their giant Labrador for a walk. And he used to shit in their garden, then the smell would waft its way over to our house. The first time we saw the family was when they moved what looked like every piece of furniture out onto the front lawn and the street.
Okay.
The mother was just like a typical large torpedo-titted lady. Oh, right. Whereas the dad had one arm that was much longer than the other. It reached past his knee and was also limp. It just swung about while he was carrying stuff out one-handed. Let's just keep talking about the dad. The child then came out, and we couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl, though it did have hair like Art Garfunkel. We watched these neighbours then move all the furniture back into the house. What a pointless Sunday afternoon.
Why shouldn't they?
We became obsessed with the child and finding out if it was a boy or a girl.
I played that game too.
Our arguments in the house got worse when one day it knocked on the door to ask me if I was the one playing guitar. I said yes. It told me it loved Ozzy Osbourne and then left. Its voice was high-pitched, but then sounded like it was breaking halfway through, so no luck there. One day in town, we saw it working in the local BHS. We went in, snuck round, and walked over to it to ask some question about something we didn't care about, just to sneak a look at the name tag. The moment came, and then we saw it wasn't wearing one. By the time we left university, we never solved the mystery.
Is it a girl or a boy? Not sure this is the right climate to be talking like this. It is an Ozzy Osbourne fan. Let's leave it at that. It is an Ozzy Osbourne fan. Let's leave it at that. It is an Ozzy Osbourne fan. Let's leave it at that. It is an Ozzy Osbourne fan. Is it a girl or a boy? Gossip number 6. Celebrity Joe Lycett.
Hello friends, Joe Lycett here, long-term fan, first-time caller. The rumour I would like to talk about is one about a young lad in a rival school to mine in Birmingham. He apparently was playing on a Scalextric track, and he was playing fully nude. He unfortunately sat on it in the wrong position and electrified his cock and balls, which resulted in a rare medical condition in which he could not get rid of his erection. Apparently doctors said there was nothing they could do. He apparently as well, this is a sort of sub-story, had a very thin penis and thus became known as Pencil Paul in our school. Not even sure his name was Paul. And there were all sorts of jokes about you could pop him behind your ear, that kind of thing. Anyway, Paul supposedly rang in to the local radio station, BRMB, on a show called Jezza's Confessions to tell this story. Jezza is Jeremy Kyle, and it catapulted Jezza to local fame, which then resulted in a Virgin Radio show and then his ITV television programme. And the rest is history. So perhaps Pencil Paul's rock-hard, thin cock resulted in the Jeremy Kyle show. Love the show. Bye-bye.
What do you think about getting changed at the gym?
I don't want to see my friends naked. Why? What do you think?
I don't know. I have absolutely no problem with it whatsoever.
What? No, not you as well. Because I'm just going to be spending the whole time going, don't look down, keep eye contact.
And that's why you get changed at home.
We all have our own privacy settings in life. That's why Facebook helps you control yours at facebook.com/privacy.
Gossiping is wrong. It is. And I'm including myself in this because all of us, every single person, has been guilty of gossiping. Now, I do believe that there are different levels of gossip. There are what you call malicious gossip, and then just regular, just general gossip. When it comes to malicious gossip, it is basically to tear apart or ruin the character or reputation of somebody. You will gossip about things that you perceive on a person or something you may have heard about a person, and you will begin to spread and carry bones to other people about other people or a particular person, and it's malicious.
Oh, shut up. For fuck's sake. Party pooper. On with the show. Gossip number 7.
Okay, this is from Jonah. All right, all. My gossip concerns my mate and specifically his brother. Let's call him Jim. A couple of years ago, they attended their uncle's wedding somewhere in deepest rural Essex. It was a posh affair with a sizable marquee set in a lovely countryside setting. Because of the remoteness of the location and in a desperate but probably vain attempt to prevent drink driving offences, camping was available on site. My mate and Jim arrived on the site in the wedding finery ready for a family reunion and the joy of seeing their uncle finally getting hitched. Unfortunately, another uncle was also present, who had recently returned from what had descended into a narcotic fact-finding mission in South America. I say uncle, but I think he was more one of those slightly weird people who hang around your family who you call uncle, but isn't really. My mate and his brother were both in their late 20s, but still weren't entirely sure if he was their uncle or not. As soon as, let's call him Uncle Bob, saw the pair of them, he invited them into his tent for a pre-wedding livener. This turned out to be a solid dosing of weapons-grade acid. But by the sounds of it, was probably something far stronger. My mate isn't into all that and politely declined. Jim, however, showed no such restraint. He immediately consumed the preferred narcotics and slipped into a hallucinatory trance. He remembers Uncle Bob saying that he would look after him.
God.
My mate said that he remembers his brother looking deeply contented with his eyes closed, purring like a cat, and occasionally making harsh guttural squawking noises. But all appeared well. This is where it starts getting weird. Unbeknownst to Bob or my mate, Jim's hallucination had seen him take on the form of a gigantic, aggressive, what can only be described as Spaceworm. oh God, I'm faint. Oh God, I went all lightheaded.
Spaceworm.
Gigantic, aggressive spaceworm.
You never would have guessed that.
In his mind, he was flying through the solar system at millions of miles per hour, taking in new galaxies and generally enjoying the wondrous enormity of deep space.
All at a wedding in rural Essex. Took a turn.
Oh dear. Is this Uncle Bob's fault?
It really is Uncle Bob's fault. He's the one who brought the acid.
God.
I
love that. Flying around space eating galaxies.
Unfortunately, he then decided that in order to be able to reproduce and keep his spaceworm lineage going, he had to bore into the centre of a planet and eat the fiery core. Okay.
That's what spaceworms have to do, I'm afraid.
Oh God. Oh dear. This he did in his mind and started tunnelling through the centre of a convenient nearby planet. Oh God. Oh. Obviously, the transition from the vacuum of space into the rocky core of the planet caused his worm body to start juddering violently. Jim was aware that he was doing this, but to my mate and Bob, it looked like he was having a fairly serious seizure.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. It's just a spaceworm.
fairly serious.
I'm just drilling into a planet, guys. Don't worry.
I've got to eat the whole core. If I'm ever going to have kids.
Oh, fuck. Panicking, but also using the skills he'd learned in South America, Bob declared that the best cure for a seizure was vitamin C powder, of which he had a copious supply for this very eventuality.
Oh, God.
As Jim juddered away, he began trying to spoon feed it to him, but only succeeded in smearing it all over his face and all over his wedding outfit. Little reminder where we are.
Oh, yeah, we're in Essex at a wedding. Uncle's wedding, who's finally settled there.
Oh, God.
Got a marquee.
Oh, fuck. Fortunately, at this moment, and having burst back out the other side of the planet, the Spaceworm returned to normal.
That's all we needed to do. Eat the
He's
core.
fine, I'm fine now. And Bob thought he'd saved the day. Unfortunately, Jim, brackets the Spaceworm, then moved on to the next stage of its reproductive cycle.
Oh, shit, I hurt.
Oh, dear.
Oh, my head.
He moved on to the next stage of his reproductive cycle, which was to give birth to the fiery core as a new star. From which, presumably, his Spaceworm son would be born.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
This has to stop soon.
I don't think it does.
Oh, my God.
Temporarily relaxed, my mate and Bob soon became aware that the grunting was becoming more and more frequent, as were looks of great exertion rippling across Jim's face.
Are they still in the tent?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, God.
Whilst they'd been otherwise occupied, the Spaceworm, brackets Jim,
Just to connect those two things. Jim is the Spaceworm.
had removed its trousers and now did indeed give birth to a large, slurry-like, hideous star. His shit mixed in with the vitamin C powder encased him in a foul-smelling galactic miasma. The agonies of labour were also causing him to writhe around violently, ensuring that there was very little left of him, including his face and hair left uncovered. Among frantic screams of "What the fuck are you doing?" and "Stop it, you fucking animal," the Spaceworm began the final chapter of its life cycle, which was to eat the placenta left over from the birth of the star. As my horrified mate watched his brother shovel a combo of shit and vitamin C powder into his mouth with his bare hands, whilst groaning ecstatically, Bob decided he'd had enough and made a run for it.
You can always rely on Bob. Caused a fucking meltdown.
Not to be seen again for the rest of the wedding. My mate also had had enough and called an ambulance before also making a run for it
Everyone's left for space.
and hiding nearby to watch the aftermath.
Oh, my God.
To bring this long and weird tale to an end, he watched as the ambulance crew helped his now semi-compos mentis brother out of the tent, covered in shit and white powder, whilst vomiting up the shit he'd already eaten. In front of dozens of horrified wedding guests, and saw him head off to hospital. My mate managed to blag that he'd been nowhere near and pretended he'd been off checking the marquee while this was happening.
Oh, God.
He said the rest of the wedding was a delight, but he had to sleep under a van as the tent was understandably a write-off. Cheers, Jonah. That's
Oh, Jonah.
fucking hell.
That is
Round
so
of applause.
Convinced you're an intergalactic worm traveling through the universe whilst attending a wedding in Essex. What a confusing afternoon.
Space worm. Let me hear you. Space worm. You're so cool. Space worm. Let me hear you. Space worm. You're so cool.
Convinced you're an intergalactic worm traveling through the universe whilst attending a wedding in Essex. Gossip number 8.
Hello, Poppy, Joe, and Dave. Dave. Upside Down Man used to come into my tattoo shop on a Saturday every few months. At the time, our cheapest tattoos were just £10, and for £10 you could get a single name. The reason we called Upside Down Man is because of all of his tattoos were upside down. To us, yet when he looked at them, they were the right way up.
It's true.
Upside Down Man had a list of as long as his forearm of all the celebrities he liked most in the world. The list, and I swear this to be true, consisted of the following names: Robson and Jerome, Goldie, Milli Vanilli, Duncan Goodhue, Carl Cox, and Wigfield. These tattoos gave Upside Down Man immense joy. And every time he'd leave the studio, he'd always say, "You wait until next time. You'll never guess who I'm going to get." And every time he visited, I'd always try and guess. Well, the very last time I saw Upside Down Man, before the shop burnt down, he was buzzing with excitement about his newest edition, and the fact that this time he was going to get it tattooed on his knuckles. After the guessing game had run its course, he then finally spilt what he wanted to have. "Queen. I'm going to get Queen," he shouted. "Wicked," I said. "I love Freddie Mercury." "Huh?" he goes, looking at me like I'm a complete fucking dickhead. "Not Queen the band, I mean Queen as in the actual Queen."
Queen.
He then explained to me that his old cellmate was the guy who had broken into the Queen's bedroom and that he was going to get out of prison that very same week. He's going to fucking love this when I see him. And then fist bumped some Union Jack flash on the wall.
I'm over the moon with it.
Joe, Poppy and David will now choose their favourite rumour.
Okay, shh. Shush, guys. Shush. I've narrowed it down to the 5 I think are contenders. It. It.
Yeah, it was good.
Auntie Playboy. 1980s BP Clive.
That was a good one.
Spaceworm. And Upside Down Man. So what are we going for? It's Spaceworm. What are we going for?
Spaceworm.
It's got to be Spaceworm, yeah.
So would you mind opening the window and telling them all about Spaceworm? Thank you.
I'm so hot.
Show off.
Boiling.
Got to shout because they're definitely.
They are miles
I'm
away.
boiling.
She's hot.
I'm hot and I need to. Okay, there was a wedding. There was an uncle, a bad uncle.
Bob.
Uncle Bob with acid. He gives it to someone. They start tripping that they are a spaceworm travelling through space, eating. They need to eat a planet to keep
The
going.
hot core of a planet.
Oh, the hot core of a planet. They need to eat it.
Otherwise, they can't reproduce.
Otherwise, they can't reproduce. So they eat it. But on the outside, he's juddering and shivering around. And then
Around.
about.
Around.
And then it shits out the planet, but in real life is just shitting. And then it's just awful, and he gets took away in an ambulance.
And his brother ran off.
His brother ran away. Is that all right?
Hey!
Shut the window. There we go.
It's cold in here.
Lovely. Oh well.
Great work, everyone.
Yeah, good work.
Yeah, thanks for sending stuff in.
Yeah.
It means a lot. Had a nice day, haven't we?
Right. Say goodbye then. We're really tired.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye from us all.
Bye.
Bye.
If you would like to send in a bit of unsubstantiated gossip, then please email gossipmongers@yahoo.com. All names will be changed to protect the innocent. Until the next time. Until time.